My friends, hello. This video could save your life. I shouldn't say save, I should say prolong. I'm not the savior, but you get what I mean. The aviation videos here are just a pretext, really, just a pretext. An opportunity to share universal information about collective safety, but also individual safety. People in medicine and the nuclear field write that these videos have helped them greatly. But it also helps people day to day in their everyday lives, like this video in particular. Look, I was 5 or 6 years old. I left the house to go buy a toy. It was, for those who know, it's karantika, the national dish. We were allowed to go out alone at that age. It was because of the great trust we had in each other back then. I reached the side of the road and wanted to cross because I saw the street vendor with his cart on the other side. Two kids from my school called out, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you buying something from that guy?" They had figured out what I was doing. I said yes. They replied, "He's on the other side, okay? See that?" It was a pointless exchange that wasted a few seconds. And with that, I crossed the street, and then that's it. I wake up in the hospital. I had been hit by a vehicle, by a car. I was fine, just a bit shaken up, mostly scratches all over my body, but nothing else. The plate and the money disappeared, despite what I told you earlier about trust, right? And what happened? What really happened? Because it could have been anything, but it was a car, a black car, a Peugeot 104 driven by a woman. Well, it could have been a truck, it could have been a Burliette. In that case, this video wouldn't even exist. We wouldn't even be talking about it. It wouldn't have been a problem. So, to tell you what happened here, there was a mental process that started. I want to cross. It was interrupted by a conversation, then picked up again where it left off, and bam! The mental process. Many mental processes can't handle recycling, can't handle interruption. We say that there. Yes, I'm using database terminology. Those who manage databases know what we call atomicity. What is the atomicity of an atomic database? It means that the right operation on the database will either be done completely or not at all. Your bank's database, it follows the principle of atomicity. Otherwise, it can happen if there's a problem or a crash or a power outage when you're withdrawing money. Suppose it ends up with a database showing someone withdrew €1, but the person is unknown. That's not possible. It doesn't exist. It's atomic. Atomic means you either do it or you don't, but it's indivisible. In aviation, let me give you a simple example. Takeoff. Takeoff involves a lot of steps that follow one another, but in the end, cognitively speaking, it's an atomic process. There's no in between. It's either you do it or you don't. There is a moment when it can be interrupted, it can be stopped. But if the takeoff, let's say a plane accelerates, then there's a problem. You reduce the throttle, start braking. There's no in between. Oh, no, in the end, it wasn't a big problem. Go ahead, throttle up again. It's not re-engaged. It's atomic. Either you do it or you don't. You can't split it. We used to say that the atom was indivisible, although we were wrong, but that's what atomic means in the sense of indivisible. We can also use market terminology. You know, in the market, you place an order, you want to sell shares, for example, or buy shares, you have an option that you check. For your broker, it's called fill or kill, which means either you execute the entire order or you cancel it. There's no in between, you don't go halfway. Buy me half at this price, the other half at that price, and so on. Fill or kill. I order 1,000 shares at that price. Get them all or forget it. So we have an attachment as humans, and that's a cognitive bias that we all have, including me, who's talking to you about this right now. We all notice it in ourselves, our sometimes excessive attachment to cognitive and mental processes. Look, if someone crashes into my car, they're backing up. Bang, my roof's a bit dented, but I won't replace it. I'll just get it fixed. That's normal. We fix lots of things. If, I don't know, if my computer, which I paid a lot for, has a problem, I'm not going to throw it in the trash and buy another one. I'm going to get it fixed. I'm missing a fan. I'm missing, I don't know what. There's a RAM stick I'm going to change. I'm not going to throw it away. But the problem is that very often we take that mentality and attach it to mental processes. A mental process that's maxed out, that's twisted, that's got a problem, we throw it away and redo it, but in reality, we don't actually do it. We try to fix it, and that's the problem. Let me give you a simple example. You're trying to cross the road, you want to cross the road, and at the crosswalk, you realize you're crossing the wrong road, you're crossing for the wrong reason. The address is on the opposite side, not where you're going. What do? Security. If you want to go to the security side, you keep crossing because you've already started. It's atomic. You can't break the mental process in the middle of the road. Stop, turn back, check if it's clear, and go again. You open Pandora's box. Danger is a niche. Here's what you do. Start, keep going, cross, reach the other side, look from the sidewalk, then return. There are a lot of widows and orphans. If you look at aviation accidents, if you look at medical errors in surgery, see, they're always starting something in the middle of crossing and following protocol. Bam! An emergency occurs, a nurse enters, or someone opens the operating room door to discuss something. Where were we? We keep asking ourselves that question. We risk opening Pandora's box. It's already starting to open. Let me tell you a story from April 20th, 2025. Well, there's an EasyJet plane that's going to take off in the morning, an Airbus ATV that's going to take off in the morning from Belfast, heading to Palma. It's packed, 83 people on board. So we have a captain who's very experienced. Experience is not a problem at all, really. But the thing is, to his right, he has a co-pilot who was hired recently, a young co-pilot who's just starting out, who's doing his first segments on the Airbus A321. It's the beginning of his career. And so if you want, that's going to create, for the co-pilot and for the captain, it's going to create an additional workload. That means that instead of having a co-pilot he can rely on, he has a co-pilot, he has to monitor, he has to watch over, he has to help. So you see, there's that already. It's morning and there's icing. It's April, but there's still ice. So the pilots decide that they need to call the de-icing services. That means coming with glycol, the truck with the powerful hose, and then spraying the plane. Okay, in preparation for this, so they order the de-icer, but at the same time, they prepare the plane for that. So what you have to do is close the doors, all that, and be careful. Press the ditching button, the water landing button. You might wonder, what's the connection between a water landing and glycol? Actually, here's the story. It's that in the Airbus, there's a water landing button. It's a button that's used in extreme cases. Kind of like the story of the water landing on the Hudson. What does this button do? Well, with a single button, you can shut down a lot of things. There are valves, for example, air intake valves in the engines, they will be closed. The bleed air valves. So that allows you to take air from the compressor and then pass it through a whole system to pressurize the air in the plane. So that's closed. The valves that allow air to be discharged from the cabin and let it out will be closed, and other air intake valves will also be closed. The instrument cooling valves, since the instruments, especially when the plane is on the ground, tend to heat up, there are valves that let the hot air out, and those will be closed, and so on. The button allows you to close a lot of valves at once. Who, in fact, would be there if the plane were in the water? If we imagine the plane in the water, all these valves would be below the water line. This actually allows, in the event of a water landing, to prevent water from entering, or at least slow its entry, and then allow a little more floating time and a little more time for evacuation. So that's it, really. They press this button, the snow removal services arrive. They take a look. They say, listen, there's no more snow, there's no ice, there's nothing. If you want to pay 20,000 euros, I can do it, but right now there's nothing on this. The operation was cancelled. You see, we have a mental operation and a process that was cancelled. And very often in mental processes that involve an interaction between a human and a machine, mental interruption is something you really have to watch out for, because that's where danger hides. So, okay, it's fine. There's no problem. So let's go. Engines start. They get clearance to taxi. Everything's fine. It reads, takes off. And then they climb to flight level 90, 300, 410. They reach flight level 390. Suddenly there's a problem. They get an alarm. The cabin altitude is rising. That means there's no pressurization. So, well, they're gently heading toward a depressurization situation. So things are serious. The captain asks the co-pilot, who has just started his career and has to take the radio and send out the first mayday of his career, which is coming up. You see, he has to send a mayday. And he tells him, put on your oxygen mask, set the oxygen to 100%. So they set the oxygen to 100%, and then they hear an emergency descent. During the descent, the captain starts looking around thinking, what happened? He starts searching a little to see. And then suddenly he increases the brightness of the dashboard and the lights. There are actually dimmer switches that allow you to decrease or increase the brightness of all the buttons and instruments. He turns everything up to the maximum, and then he glances above his head and toward the pressurization panel. He sees something. There is a guarded switch. It's the ditching switch. It's a guarded switch. That means it's protected. It has something on it. It's protected. And actually he sees that it's on, and he realizes that he forgot to turn it off, that during the interruption, well, he left the switch on. The problem is that once the switch is left on, when the pressurization is on automatic, well, the valves are still closed. If the pressurization is on manual, well, the valves open. Because it's an override switch, if you want, override switches are bypass switches. You have an automatic system, but this time we'll override it and close it, even if it tries to open automatically, because there's an emergency. That's why the switch is guarded, but in manual mode, we can override it. You see, it can be confusing at times. So what he does is he stops. So he's going to put it on off. And what's going to happen is that they stop their descent at the blood level and realize that this time the pressurization has started again slowly. And then they cancel the mayday and decide to continue to their destination. So they arrive at their destination in Palma. Everyone, there you go, gets out their beach towels and off they go. We just missed it. We didn't realize. So that's it. It was a serious incident. It was considered by the British authorities as a serious incident. It could have resulted in insidious depressurization like what happened. Do you remember Helios, which was widely discussed on this channel and involved a Boeing that it was flown like a ghost with everyone inside unconscious? We considered it a major incident, even though there was no damage or injuries. But it's because of its potential, isn't it? Its potential for damage. You see, so there you go. I think there's a very important lesson here to be learned about these mental processes and their atomicity. And the fact that when you interrupt something, it always is. You know, I'll give you an example. I was at the Aero Club in the United Kingdom. I was flying on a Diamond, the Diamond. The problem is it's a very nice plane, isn't it? But you have the fuel that can only be taken from one tank and not the other. So you have two tanks, one on each wing, and actually the engine can only take from one tank. So if you do nothing, it will eventually empty one tank and then it will stop. It can't take from the other. So what do you have to do regularly? And I don't know why they did that. It makes no sense. Regularly, you have to activate a pump. You have to press a button to transfer the fuel to the tank the engine is using. General aviation's fuel systems are a disaster. And actually, the problem with that is, imagine you're transferring the fuel, so you're pressing a button, and it's not a spring-loaded button. It won't go back to its original spot. If you release, you press, it will keep doing it until it literally empties the fuel from one side, overfills the other tank, and if it overfills, it will even start to spill out. Since the 20s, it will go outside, making it a delicate situation. The human brain doesn't have an option, doesn't have a mental function to pause and resume. It's poorly designed. That function, there are plenty of functions we have that are good, but that one isn't very good. And actually, imagine he gets a radio call, or imagine he has something else to do. I forced myself to create my own procedure, but it isn't always good since it can cause side effects. Every time I use the switch, I had to keep my hand on it. If ever there's a radio call or something else I have to do, you know what I do. I turn off the transfer pump, I do what I have to do, and then I turn it back on. And I keep my hand on it the whole time I'm doing the transfer. So, because it's a way to acknowledge that it's not in my mind. There isn't an advanced function that allows you to pause and resume a process. If I play with that, I know that pretty quickly, after a few repeated situations, I'll end up forgetting. But we have to acknowledge it in advance, acknowledge our humanity and our limits, recognize them to avoid having nature teach us that lesson the hard way. There you go. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you to those who are watching the video. They are either shared on Patreon or they are shared on the paid subscription part of this channel. Thanks to their support, this channel can continue and provide you all this content. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next subtitle.